Very good morning, dear students. Welcome back to the today's session. And this session we are going to continue the discussion of chapter 1 under the part B, that is LPG, liberalization, privatization and globalization. In the previous session already we have discussed the background to adapt the new economic policy in our country, as well as we have discussed the meaning of new economic policy. It means the new economic policy is nothing but our economic reforms, and economic reforms or new economic policy means that changes adapted in the set of economic policy since 1991. It means whatever the changes we have made in our set of economic policy, that all the changes will be called it as a new economic policy or economic reforms. Reforms is nothing but changes. Whatever the changes we have adapted in our economic policy since 1991, that all can be called it as a new economic policy, and this we have adapted in the year of 1991. Yes, right? And this new economic policy and programs are broadly classified into mainly two. The two are is first one stabilization program and second one is structural adjustment program. Already we have discussed this. What do you mean by stabilization programs? Sorry, here stabilization programs means the programs which helps to bring the stability in the economy, and this all are macroeconomic measures. Whatever the programs will take under the stabilization program, or that programs will be macroeconomic measures. It means that will applicable to a whole country or entire economy. The main programs under the stabilization program is financial sector reform, foreign trade reform and physical sector reforms. And here the stabilization programs adapted mainly in order to create a stability in the demand and supply of goods and services, in order to bring control in the inflationary pressure. To reduce the inflation rate, we have adapted some programs, and also to bring the stability in a BOP, because there was a deficit BOP before 1991. The country is facing deficit BOP and inflationary pressure. To bring stability in this too, we have adapted some stabilization programs. Then with that, one more program is there, that is structural adjustment program. The new economic policy programs are two. One is stabilization programs and second one structural adjustment program. And we'll start discussion. What is structural adjustment programs? Shortly we can also call it as SAP. SAP means structural adjustment program. Here structural adjustment program means the programs which helps to bring the structural changes in the economy and also to improve the productivity. Okay, in order productivity means it includes agriculture as well as industrial sector as well as service sector. For all the sectors, productivity to improve and also to bring the structural changes, which are the programs we have adapted. All the programs we will call it as a structural adjustment programs, and these programs are the microeconomic measures. It means this applicable only to a particular sector or individual sectors. They will not applicable to a whole country or whole economy. This sectoral adjustment programs will applicable particularly to that sector, or it applicable only to a individual sectors. That's why it call it as a microeconomic measures. And under this program, the main programs are functions we have adapted is mainly, okay, structural adjustment program. Take down structural adjustment programs or the programs. It means structural adjustment programs are those which helps to bring structural changes, which helps to bring structural changes in the economy and improvement in the productivity is nothing but structural adjustment program. They will ask for 1 mark or 2 marks. What do you mean by structural adjustment programs? Your structural adjustment programs are those which helps to bring the stability structural changes in the economy and also helps to improvement in the productivity of different sectors like agriculture, industry and service sectors. That programs would be called it as a structural adjustment program. And here these programs are or microeconomic measures. Economic measures applicable only for concerned or one particular sector. Applicable only for concerned sectors or individual sectors. Okay, here micro means it applicable only to the particular person or institution or any particular sector. Your macro means applicable to a whole or entire and everyone. But your micro means it applicable to only one particular person or one particular sector or one particular institution. And here under the structural adjustment programs, whatever the programs we apply or we taken, that programs only applicable for the particular concerned sectors or individual sector. And the main programs under this structural adjustment programs is example public sector, reforms and trade reforms. Understood? The new economic policy programs we have broadly classified into two. One is stabilization program and second one is structural adjustment program. This is what structural adjustment program. And next we will move to the main features of new economic policy. Okay, you understood, right? The main features of new economic policy or economic reforms. The main features of new economic policy or economic reforms are three. One is liberalization, privatization and globalization. The main three features we have adapted under the economic reforms. The first one, liberalization. Second one, privatization. And third one, globalization. These are the main three features of new economic policy are economic reforms. Now we'll discuss one by one what is liberalization and what are the programs will comes under the liberalization, or what are the measures will comes under the liberalization, and what do you mean by privatization, and what are the steps included in the privatization, and next we'll discuss what do you mean by globalization. Okay, now let us first look at the liberalization. Okay, here liberalization is nothing but removing or taking back on all the restrictions and control of the government on the economy. We all already discussed in the initial days of independence, the government was playing a dominant role and the main role compared to private sector and other sectors. That's why there was no freedom to enter into the production activity and no freedom to export the goods and services. There is no much activities from others. Only the government was playing a heavy role and dominant role, as well as more restrictions and control on the various production activities. That's why the productivity as well as the exports of our country was very low, and because of that reason we started facing several problems. To overcome all these problems, the country have adapted new economic policy. In that new economic policy, the main one is liberalization, and here liberalization means removing the restrictions and the control of the government on different economic sectors. Got it? Here, take a meaning of liberalization. Liberalization is the process of removing government control and restrictions on economic activities. We all know that economic activities means production, consumption, distribution and exchange. All these production activities were mainly under the control of government rather than private people. That's why to give a freedom to a private sector, what happened? We had after liberalization. It means liberalizing our process of removing the government control and restrictions on economic activities is nothing but liberalization. Or take one more meaning. Liberalization refers to giving a greater freedom to the economic agents. It means producers and consumers. Financial institutions will be called as economic agents. Giving a greater freedom to the economic agents to take their own decisions regarding production, regarding production, comma, consumption, and marketing. Marketing is nothing but liberalization. Got it? In one first meaning, the liberalization means it's a process of removing government restrictions or control on economic activities like production, distribution, consumption, and etc. And or if we can take one more meaning, what is that? Liberalization refers to giving a greater freedom. That means giving a liberty or giving a chance to economic agents like producers, consumers, and some other institutions. That means financial institutions to take their own decisions regarding their activities like production, consumption, and marketing, because these are the main economic activities. When we give a greater freedom to the economic agents to take their decisions regarding this, it's a possibility to increase the production capacity, and by increasing the production capacity we can able to create the employment opportunities, and also we can bring stability in the inflationary rate, and also at the same time it helps to stimulate the export capacity of our country. That's why liberalization is the main feature of the new economic policy. With the help of liberalization, we have given a chance to economic agents to involve in their activities and to show their capacity in the various economic activities. Okay, that's why you have understood this meaning. Now we'll move that in which areas, okay, in which are the particular areas are liberalized under the new economic policy. Okay, now you got the meaning of liberalization. Now we'll come to know what are the areas or what are the sectors we have adapted liberalization process. Okay. The main areas or sectors liberalization measures were introduced. This is for important for 4 marks. They will ask what do you mean by liberalization and what are the important or main areas of liberalization measures were introduced, or where the liberalization, in which areas are the important areas where the liberalization is adapted. Okay, in the first one, deregulation of industrial sector, and second one is financial sector reforms, and third one, tax reforms, and fourth one, foreign exchange reforms, and fifth one, reforms in trade and investment. These are the 5 areas or sectors we adapted the liberalization liberalization process. In that first one, deregulation of industrial sector. First area we are liberalized is industrial sector. Then second, financial sector. Then third, tax reforms. And fourth one is foreign exchange reforms or foreign trade reforms, we can also call it. And last one, reforms in trade and investment. These are the 5 areas of liberalization process was adapted. Okay, and next we will discuss one by one. What is deregulation of industrial sector? What is deregulation of industrial sector? We will discuss. And later, what is financial sector reform, tax reform, foreign exchange reform, and reforms in trade and industry. Now, we will discuss deregulation of industrial sector. Here, very simple. Before economic reforms, almost all the industries was under the control of government. More than 70 type of industries were under the control of government. There was no chance to the private people to invest in that particular sectors and to produce the goods and services. Then after adapting the deregulation of industrial sector, the industrial licensing system was abolished or removed, and the more than 17 type of industries was under the control of government, and that is reduced from 17 to 2 type of industries to be under the control of government. Mainly which type of industries are related to the national security and national integrity, that except that industries, almost all the industries have abolished their licensing to establish their own production units. In that, what are the 2 industries are under the control of government means, one is atomic energy, because atomic energy, when we give up private people's authority, they may misuse, and that creates environmental problems as well as some other kind of issues internally. That's why atomic energy and the railway sector, except these 2 industries, remaining all the industries have got a liberty to invest by the private people. That's why this is what the deregulation of industrial sector. After adapting the new economic policy in the 1991, mainly the industrial sector got a liberty in order to export, in order to get the exposure. Because before that, more than 17 type of industries was under the control of government, and there is no freedom to enter any private institutions or individuals to invest in that particular sectors. But later, after adapting the liberalization, from 17 to 2 it was reduced. The 17 industries was under the control of government. After liberalization, only 2 industries was under the control of government. What are that is atomic energy and railway related industries. Except these 2 industries, remaining all industries are open to invest by the private people. And the licensing, before establishing of any industries or any industrial institution, each and everyone must get the license from the government. But after liberalization, the industrial licensing system was abolished in order to establish the industrial units or into production units. This is what deregulation of industrial sector. If you want, I will give a clear notes later classes. Okay. And next we move to what is financial sector reforms. Second one is financial sector sector reforms. Here, first, before going to the financial sector reform, firstly we need to know what is financial sector. Here, financial sector includes the institutions like financial institutions like commercial banks, investment banks, development banks, and insurance companies. It means the financial institutions means the institutions which were dealing with the finance or money. That institution will be called as a financial institution. It includes commercial banks, development banks, and investment banks with that insurance companies, because this all will be related to money circulations. It means accepting of deposits, lending of loans, that means giving of loans, and adapting the deposits. Likewise, which institutions will be dealing with money, that institutions will be called as a financial institutions. Mainly the commercial banks, investment banks, development banks, and insurance companies. And before the economic reforms of 1991, the main institution which was controlling all these financial institutions means the RBI. RBI is the single controller of all the financial institutions, and it was giving more rules and regulations to the financial institutions activities, and there is no freedom to a financial institution to take their own decisions and own activities to generate the financial facilities. Whatever the rules, regulations like through repo rate, through bank rate, and through SLRs, the RBI used to control the activities of all the financial institutions before the reforms. But after adapting the liberalization in the area of financial sector, the role of RBI is shifted from controller to a facilitator. Before reforms, the RBI used to act like a head or controller or superior of all the institutions. But after economic reforms, the role of RBI was shifted from controller to a facilitator of the financial institutions. And then all the financial institutions got a freedom to take their own decisions regarding several matters like appointment of staffs and adapting of modern techniques and computerization of the banking activities. Likewise, they have enjoyed, it means the financial institutions have enjoyed greater freedom after the new economic policy, in that too mainly the liberalization of financial sector, and it created the good forum. It means the financial sector reforms created a good forum to establishment of private banks as well as foreign banks in our country. That's why we are seeing more than 150 type of banking institution in our country. Got it? That's why the financial sector reforms created a amendment changes. It means the influential changes in the economy after the new economic policy, because it's reduced RBI control on financial institution and it shifted the role of RBI from controller to a facilitator, and also financial institutions got freedom to take own decisions in the several matters, and also it created a forum to establishment of private banks, and means private sector banks as well as foreign banks. Okay, then next we'll move to one more type of one more area of where the liberalization is adapted. What is that? Tax reforms. The next one is tax reforms. Yeah, this reforms we'll discuss in the next class. I hope you understood this today's session. Okay, then we'll meet in the next session with the study of tax reforms. Thank you everyone.